What's more likely to send you to the ER and why? Today, I will describe what's science and what's stigma behind the top 10 drugs most likely to cause ER visits. So before I go into the drugs, you need to understand what this data actually tells us and what it for sure does not tell us. So this is just looking at ER visits. This is not looking at like fatal ER visits, so not things like which ones are more likely to cause an overdose. This is also not looking at things like long-term harm. And this data is obviously tainted in some ways. Like, there are certain drugs that are just more likely to cause people to go to the ER because more people are trying them. So just recognize that this data, while it seems like it's super interesting in terms of how dangerous it is, it's only getting at one specific aspect of danger. And this is not actually tracking all ER visits either. So the problem is that there's not really a good reporting system for this. So there used to be one, and it worked until basically 2024. And so what they would do is they'd take like a subsample of hospitals. So in this case, in the 2024 data, it was 60 different hospitals. And then they'd kind of like extend those findings, generalize it to the entirety of the United States. And then 2024 happened and a new administration came in, and this new administration does not have priorities for looking at this. And so they shut down this program. Now, don't get me started on what this is actually doing to the entire scientific community in the United States, because I will start crying. I will be as angry as the chorus of dogs howling in my background right now. It is not good. But at least we have until 2024, right? So here are the top 10 drugs in 2024 that were most likely to cause people to go to the emergency room. And this includes prescription and illegal drugs. So number 10 is antipsychotics, and antipsychotics typically cause people to go to the emergency room because of their terrible side effects. Antipsychotics are genuinely kind of a terrifying class of drugs. And that's because, yes, they work extremely well, but yes, they also have some of the worst side effects of any prescription medication that you're gonna get out there. So they can cause things like extrapyramidal side effects. So these are side effects that usually affect the motor system. So things like jaw movement when you're not actually trying to move things, so tremors, and sometimes these can be permanent. And in a lot of cases, they just kind of come out of nowhere. And then there are other antipsychotics that have fewer of those symptoms, but more problems with fatal blood disorders. While some of the ER visits for antipsychotics are for things like accidental overdoses, which is gonna be a common theme you'll see throughout this video, a lot of it is just due to the terrible side effects. Now, the number 9 type of drug that's most likely to cause ER visits is anticonvulsants. And this is typically because of the actual disorder that they're being used to treat. So anticonvulsants have a lot of potential issues with it. First, you have to take it on a very specific schedule. So we're talking about every 8 hours, and it needs to be every 8 hours. So the side effects of the drugs, as well as just the frequency that you have to take them and the difficulty of humans in trying to remain on this very strict schedule, yeah, that leads to a lot of ER visits. Now, benzos, so the number 8 drug, have a ton of other potential problems associated with them too. So a lot of people take them when they are elderly, and this can cause a lot of things like falls. And so that is one of the reasons that they cause people to go to the ER, is the actual side effects causing people to just get more injured. Now, one of the other main reasons that benzos can cause the ER visits is its withdrawal. So alcohol and benzos, those are the 2 main types of drugs that actually can cause fatal withdrawal symptoms. And so a lot of people get over their heads relatively quickly when they try to stop taking them. They don't realize that this might be a problem, and thus they end up at the ER. So please note that alcohol and benzos are very difficult to withdraw from, and you need to talk to your doctor about that if you're trying to quit. Antidepressants are number 7 in terms of most likely to cause you to go to the ER. And this is typically, unfortunately, because of things like suicide attempts. So it is typically suicide attempts or serotonin syndrome, where somebody takes antidepressants, which increase levels of serotonin, and other drugs that increase levels of serotonin at the same time, and then they start getting things like cardiovascular issues, they might get seizures, and then they go to the ER because they have these problematic serotonin syndrome side effects. But also, side note, antidepressant withdrawal is terrible. Not fatal, but terrible, so this can send people to the ER for that too. If you've never experienced a brain zap before and you stop taking your antidepressants and all of a sudden it feels like a lightning bolt is going through your brain, that's terrifying, and that might send somebody to go see what a doctor has to say about that. Number 6 is Coke. And the reason for this is typically because of Coke used in combinations with other things. Specifically in this case, alcohol. Alcohol plus cocaine makes a potent new version of a drug called cocoethylene, which is even more dangerous than either drug alone. It literally forms a new drug in your body. So yeah, that combination of things like cocaine plus alcohol, that's more dangerous and more likely to lead you to the ER, as shown by the actual ER data here. Number 5 is drug unknown. So things that we literally don't know what they are. Somebody took some sort of drug, they're not admitting to it, we can't find it on drug tests, something happened and they ended up at the ER and you're trying to treat the symptoms. So yeah, emergency rooms have a lot of things to deal with, because the number 5 drug in terms of likelihood of ending up at the ER visit is something that they don't even know what it is. Number 4 is meth. So meth is actually relatively low on this list in comparison to other drugs in terms of where people think it is. And meth is a huge problem specifically in the West. So if you look at these numbers, the numbers of people who end up in the ER for meth is 5 times higher in Western states than it is throughout the entire rest of the country. And by Western states here, I mean like the entire West Coast. And then you have kind of like that second layer. So Idaho, Montana, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, all of those states in there. Yeah, those are meth havens apparently. And people are admitted to the ER specifically for psychosis and cardiovascular issues after meth. Now, that was number 4. Number 3 is opioids. And opioids are further divided into prescription opioids and illegal opioids. And so what we see is that 1/3 of the cases of opioids sending people to the ER are due to actual prescription opioids. And 1/3 of all the opioids are fentanyl. Now, number 2 might surprise you, and that's cannabis. So weed is the second most likely drug to cause you to go to the emergency room. And this is potentially just because it is more easily accessed. So now that it's recreational, we do see a spike in emergency room visits, but it seems like that spike is like a month after people make it legal in terms of recreational or medical, and then it kind of calms down. So maybe there's a spike of like new people using it who are like, oh, that was too much and I feel like I'm gonna die. Now, are they gonna die? No. Do they feel like it? Yes. And so it does send people to the hospital. Now, there are a couple of other common reasons why weed sends people to the hospital. So first, there's children. So what you see is that 1 out of every 10 ER visits is for a child who has been exposed to weed and it is causing severe problems. We also see that it is likely to cause people to go to the ER for things like psychosis. But one of the main reasons that's actually increasing is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And I've done videos on this in the past. I can do another video if you have specific questions about it. But we do see that more and more people are potentially being exposed to things like high potency weed, which may lead to cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. We do not have basically any information on this though, so we're not entirely sure how likely it is, how often it's being kind of misdiagnosed by doctors. We know almost nothing here. Number 1, contrary to what you want to believe, is alcohol. Alcohol is 3 times more likely than any other drug to send people to the ER. And it's not underage people, it's people of age in like 96% of cases. And you might think it's because it makes other drugs more dangerous, and it does, but in the majority of these cases, so 4 out of every 5 cases, it was alcohol alone causing things like poisoning and overdose. So now you know, so you can be safer.